The Colorado Buffaloes won via Hail Mary. What does that do for recruiting? What does that do for their season?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borwood. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Join me today, On3's very own Phillip Dukes. Phillip, thank you for joining us. We have an exciting game moment and everything in between to talk about because the Colorado Buffaloes are catching some steam right now. And it seems like they're catching steam on the field and off of it. Let's talk about what that Baylor win does for them, because obviously it was a weird, wacky ending. They throw a deep bomb to Will Shepherd. He drops it. And I think everyone was like, oh, that was their chance right there. The game's over. Then, very next play, all of a sudden, Shedeur launches one in the air, and LeJontay Wester's diving across the end zone, catches it. Travis Hunter lays the wood in overtime, forces the fumble, and they win that game, escape what was a really tough Baylor team. So talk to me about what that does for, I guess, Colorado's morale on the field before we get off the field.
Yeah, I think on the field, you needed that win, right? A Big 12 game, first of all. I believe that was the first Big 12 game, was it?
Yep.
So your first game in conference, you start out, set the precedent with a win. You think about playing a team with a roster that's probably at the same as Nebraska, where you wanted to get a win with somebody again, not a Colorado State or not a North Dakota State. You want to get somebody with a Power 4 roster and get a win against them. You did that. There were some mistakes that could have been cleaned up, but at this point, the mistakes didn't come back to bite you as they had in the Nebraska game. So you were able to fight through some of the stuff. You fixed a lot. Jordan Seaton had a pretty good game. Actually, he was one of On3's true freshman of the week. I think he was the number 1 ranked true freshman last week, actually. So, yeah, I just think for recruiting, you wanted to win. A lot of people were there, a ton of energy. It was the game to watch Saturday night. A lot of people did the Tennessee-Oklahoma game, even though the score wasn't like they won by Tennessee didn't beat them by 30, but the game was never in question. This was the most exciting game on TV Saturday night, and all eyes were focused in Boulder. So I just think that it just had a ton of impact as far as keeping the trajectory going and keeping the momentum going as far as what you don't have another game like this week for a minute. Like I think the UCF game, rolling into that one, having momentum, you need this game. And like we talked about a little bit pre-show, was that the impact that it can have in Florida and then the Southeast for Colorado, who does a ton of that, and they do a ton of recruiting in the Southeast. So getting that win, it impacts recruiting, it impacts the morale and the fans, right? You got to give the fan and so I don't know if you see this Falcons hat behind me. And Atlanta fans are rabid when the team is winning, Falcons fans. But when they aren't winning, that thing can be empty. So you have to give fans something to be rabid about. Fan is short for fanatic, and if you want your fans to act like that, you need to put wins on the board in front of them, and I think that was really important.
Yeah, I love the fanatic explanation there because it's true, right? You got to give them something to cheer for, and regardless of how loyal a fan base is, it's much easier to cheer for a team when they are winning. Let's talk about the recruiting aspect. So they already flipped 4-star Antonio Branch from Penn State. They're working on Byron Baldwin, and then they're also working on offensive lineman Cardé Smith, who's committed to USC. So obviously there's a lot of work to be done in all these recruitments, but from your perspective, a win like this and sort of the momentum that they see from social media and the energy around the program, how much does that help in these recruitments?
It helps a ton. I talked to Cardé Smith after his visit. He was blown away. He's currently a Southern Cal commit, was formerly committed to Auburn. And I just think that when you get to Colorado, a lot of people talk about the scenery, and not just the scenery as far as what Deion brings, but actually the landscape, the mountains. And you get kids from more metropolitan areas or who aren't from the mountain area. This is something they haven't seen before. So you mix that with a winning football team and a winning culture, then you have something to be reckoned with. Right now, including Antonio Branch, I think Colorado has 8 high school commits. They're lining up official visits for the remainder of the season. I think the Baldwin kid, who's committed to Indiana, who's a really good player, I think they have him on the ropes. And I just think that win it gives recruits proof of concept that this thing can work. And that the 2 biggest plays were who? Shedeur and Travis Hunter. All right, well, those guys are gone. So who fixes it next year? That could be you. We need somebody who can come in and make these type of plays, but also having a guy like LeJontay Webster be the guy who actually catches the touchdown. Hey, man, it doesn't just have to be Travis Hunter to make every play, and he won't even be here next year. So who's going to come in and keep this legacy going? Because if you think these fans are leaving with Travis Hunter and Shedeur, you got to be crazy. So Colorado has something building, and I think nobody wants to prove that more than Coach Prime, and I think he wants to get the guys in here that can help him do that, and I think the guys are listening.
Yeah, I think it was Steve Wiltfong who reported or wrote yesterday. It was something like all the guys that Colorado are targeting right now are guys that they think can play early. Guys that they could come in, make a role right away, and they're going to have a chance to. Coach Prime has never shied away from putting a young player on the field. He has never shied away from being like, hey, you're a true freshman. Well, guess what? You're now starting at left tackle, or you're now starting receiver, whatever it is. So he will utilize you if you are good enough to play. How often or how much? Because obviously we're getting to this point of the recruiting cycle where I would say 95% of recruits are committed, or maybe 90% of them. So how many people do you think are going to be Colorado's going to try to flip? Like, what do you think this class number ends at?
I think 15 to 16 is a pretty good number for Colorado based on what they're going to bring in the portal, because you got to bring in immediate replacements. Because when you have a portal heavy team and you haven't had the high school recruiting, you have to ramp that up a little bit every year. So I can see about 15, 16 this year. They could go a little bit higher, but if the train gets rolling, it's going to be a lot easier, and they're going to have to make a lot tougher decisions on who they take. Right now, you have the official visits, and they want official visits to be like, they want guys who really want to be in Colorado to take their official visits. You only get so many. So, and you have to save some for the portal. So I think as they continue to recruit and continue to evaluate, then I think you'll see probably this class about double, right in the 15 to 16 range. Wouldn't be surprised to see them go a little bit higher, especially if the ball gets rolling. And I think as far as with so many players being committed, they are going to have guys that are flipped from other teams. But this is the crazy thing that I love about high school football is that there are guys who aren't on the radar, who aren't in the On3's 300, that are end up in the final rankings, who haven't. They're guys who are committed to schools like Arkansas State and a group of 5 schools right now who haven't had the exposure. And this is the time, like mid-year film in Georgia is just now going out. And there are some guys that you got to go back and reevaluate and say, hey, man, that's a real ball player. So you're going to see a rash of offers go out. And you've been seeing it. Colorado has been kind of saying, hey, there's another offer. There's another offer. You're going to see more offers go out at this time of year. And anytime you see offers going out in the fall, that means that you've been reevaluated, and we see something that you've been doing that we didn't see previously. So, or you just weren't on our radar. So I think you'll see Colorado be really active with the offers in the fall, in the fall evaluation period. And I think they're going to have, I believe they're going to have pretty good fortune, especially if they continue to do what they've been doing.
Yeah, like they say, winning cures all, and winning will certainly help with morale around the program, and it'll help with the recruiting around the program. So appreciate that little scoop right there. When we come back, we're going to be talking about UCF. They open as huge favorites. Colorado is going to where Deion Sanders loves to recruit. It's going to be a fun game. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you are like me, you always have a large list of projects for home. When you get your supplies for the projects, do not forget the most essential supply, which is a 5 Hour Energy shot. When you're watching sports, grab a 5 Hour Energy shot to stay alert to watch all your favorite games. Those Pac-12 and Mountain West games are really late. You got to stay up. Even these Colorado games, pretty late. So 5 Hour Energy will make sure that you stay up for an intense overtime game like this Colorado game. So you could take a 5-hour energy shot in the morning so you could start your day. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's a perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-hour energy product today, you could use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Joining me is Phillip Dukes from On3. We are talking about the recruiting impact, the season impacts of all of these things that are happening for Colorado, because that Baylor game, it was a whirlwind. It was a roller coaster, right? Baylor runs back a 100-yard kick. They have a diving touchdown catch. Their quarterback, who not the fastest guy, 45-yard rushing touchdown. And I was like, oh my, this feels like a loss. Like, it felt like all the things were happening for Baylor. They kind of felt like not the team of destiny on the season, but it felt like that was their win to have. And they blew it, obviously, with a play at the end of the game that was apparently called Victory Cigar. Unfortunately, they were not smoking those victory cigars when the game ended. But Colorado has 3 wins now. They're 3-1 on the year. And they travel to UCF, which is in Orlando. If you guys aren't familiar, they play in a stadium called the Bounce House, and it gets rowdy there. It gets super loud. And the odds makers, Phillip, are giving the Knights a 14.5-point edge right now. So let's talk about, 1, what do we see in this UCF team? And 2, we'll dive into all the recruiting stuff after that. What do you see in this UCF team right now? Obviously, very strong run game with KJ Jefferson, RJ Harvey.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Very strong run game, but they have very capable receivers. You get a guy like Kobe Hudson, who led Auburn in receptions and receiving yards a couple of years ago, and he followed Gus to UCF, and he's been a player since he's been there. But I think also you got a guy, young tight end, Kylan Fox, who they use in a multitude of ways. But it all boils down to running the ball, and I think that the Baylor quarterback, and I believe he was the backup, and this guy who literally was kind of chopping Colorado up with A-gap runs and that they weren't prepared for. This was the best thing that could have happened to Colorado before you play a team like UCF. Because imagine you go out last week, you see this air raid stuff, and you're throwing the ball around a ton, and you don't have anything in place for the quarterback. Well, now you got plenty of film on what you need to do in order to key in on those keys. So I know that the DC is going to go say, okay, all right, they gassed us here multiple times with this quarterback run. Well, guess what? You got a running quarterback this week. So I don't think things could have played out any better for Colorado when it comes to that, especially to get a win and survive it. So I think absolutely 14.5 is too much. Matter of fact, I'm definitely going to put a phone call into Vegas when we get off this call. But yeah, I just can't see Colorado going down and laying an egg. Now, what I have heard is that UCF definitely wants to make a statement in this game after a tough TCU game, but I just don't think that UCF is that much more talented than Colorado, if more talented overall. If you just look at the high level talent across the roster, I mean, the way I've balanced talent is that could this guy play at this school? So do I think that Colorado's defensive line could play at UCF? Absolutely. Do I think that Nakai Hill Green could play at UCF? Absolutely. Do I think Travis Hunter could? Absolutely. Sam McCraig? Yes. The receivers? Yes. Jordan Seaton? UCF would have loved to have him. Couldn't get him, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see the disparity in the rosters. So I'm a little bit leery about how many points they're giving them. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a good game. I think Deion returning to Florida and the coaching capacity is going to be huge. When you think about how many recruits the UCF is going to have there, who are also going to be shooting an eye at Colorado. So outside of this, you got the Alabama-Georgia game this week, and there are going to be multiple multiple recruits on the Alabama sideline using their tickets to check Georgia out just as well. And it's going to be the same thing when you have UCF guys who are looking at, maybe I'll give Colorado a shot. And it's a show everywhere they go. So I just think that this is an opportunity for Colorado to kind of put a flag in Florida. And I think as long as they keep their game plan simple, don't try to do too much, literally run Shador like they did last game. I thought that was a huge wrinkle when they were able when Shador actually pulled the ball on RPOs. I think that was really good. So I think if they could do those things, they're gonna make a great game of it, and I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, the UCF team, they like to run the ball a lot, and I think Colorado's defense, their run defense has improved so much that I'm really interested to see how they match up because KJ Jefferson's a really good quarterback. I talked about him on my live recap show when he was first getting his start at Auburn, right? People were calling him the poor man's Cam Newton because he's a big dude, he's physical, he could throw, but he wasn't the best thrower. But he is a hell of a physical athlete when he gets moving. So if you force him to throw, if you take his legs away, it challenges him to really beat you with his arm. And can he do that? We don't know. Like, we have not seen him do that often. We haven't seen him do that at UCF yet. So we will have to wait and see. I did like your point on the visits because I don't think people realize there's a little wrinkle of recruiting where it's like, yeah, I'll take an official or unofficial visit to UCF. And yeah, I'll do it against Colorado because it's not because they care about the game being good or whatever. It's because they want to see that other team. I think the one that stood out to me the most was Ryan Williams, the Alabama receiver. He was at the Auburn 4th and 31 game against Alabama, and that was the moment he said that helped him reassure his commitment to Alabama. Like, that was his moment. So Colorado can realistically put on a show, and all of a sudden maybe there's a UCF commit over there or whoever committed to where, and it's like, you know what? I should go to Boulder. Like, this could be for me right here. So yeah, great opportunity to make a statement. Let's talk about the 14.5 points. I think they're giving UCF a lot of credit here, and I don't know where this credit's coming from. They beat New Hampshire by a lot, which they should have. They beat Sam Houston by a lot, which they should have. And then they escaped TCU, but it was a tremendous comeback. They were down 28-7 at the start of the third quarter. So where is all this UCF buzz coming from?
I think it's based on history, and I think the guys in Las Vegas do a lot of homework.
Mm-hmm.
What we do know about Gus Malzahn is, one, he's a tendency guy. So when he finds a tendency that you have, or a hole, excuse me, when he finds a wrinkle in what you do, he exploits it, and he'll try to put up 60 on you. And I think that's what they're looking at as far as Gus Malzahn's history of finding the wrinkle. So I think that in this game, Vegas-wise, if you look at what the quarterback run was able to do last week and how good Gus Malzahn traditionally has been with that, one of the innovators when it comes to that spread you out, run it up the gut type offense, which we've seen Colorado kind of struggle with. I think that's the reason why, if I were just to project. But I mean, Vegas is wrong all the time. So, and I'd be interested to see where the money is on this game, because if you see a lot of money on UCF, then like usually if you got a large spread and it keeps going up, usually that tells me like, all right, Vegas knows something. But if you see the money going towards UCF and people think they're going to cover, or it starts to drop right before the game, then I'm like, all right, you know, Colorado, maybe Vegas is trying to hedge their bets a little bit. But yeah. I definitely, I think I saw it at 11.5 when it started. So by going to 14.5, I'm like, dang, maybe a ton of money came in on UCF early on that 11.5, so they wanted to make it a little more interesting. But I think it's going to be, but if the money is on UCF, I believe it's going to be a lot of broken hearts if they go with that spread.
There we go. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a guy who doesn't break hearts. He makes everyone happy, and he also happens to be the best player in college football. His name is Travis Hunter. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, or excuse me, that's just FanDuel.com. There we go. Change up the ad read on me a little bit. We fought through it. Someone who fights through everything is Travis Hunter. He is, I think, unanimously the best player in college football and probably the most liked player in college football. I tweeted about this. People got upset about it. It wasn't my narrative. I think people forget that I'm just tweeting about things that happened. Tweeted a video of him during the Nebraska game, and he took a quote-unquote business decision to not tackle a running back that was running into the end zone. Would have you prevented the touchdown? Probably not, because the guy was so close anyway. Travis didn't have the angle. Then flash forward to this past game. Travis lowers the shoulder, low man wins, forces the fumble to win the game. He also had over 100 yards receiving. He has a program record for 100-yard receiving games in a row with 5. He is just this weird, like, sort of enigma of, like, we've never seen this before, right? We had Champ Bailey, we had Charles Woodson, we had Adoree Jackson, Miles Jack, you name all these two-way guys. None of them played every snap, both sides of the ball. Like, there are people saying, regardless of what Colorado's record is at the end of the year, he should be the Heisman winner. What do you think about Travis Hunter and what he's done so far?
Generational. We haven't seen much like it. Like to see something like what he's doing, you have to go all the way back to Champ Bailey. You have to go all the way back to Charles Woodson. We haven't seen it. Even Adoree Jackson, he's done it. I think he's no disrespect to him, but he's no Travis Hunter. Not in college. Right. Miles Jack, definitely one of my favorite players. Somebody who can go out and lead a team in rushing and have 10, 11 tackles on the defensive side of the ball. He only did it for 1 year. Like he could not consistently be a 1 on the depth chart on both sides of the ball. And in the same season, usually guys, and I think one thing that we aren't talking about is Travis's endurance. Like we can say he gets tired at the end of the game. Well, in overtime, he made the game-winning play already with 100 yards receiving in his back pocket, and then he goes and forces a fumble on the goal line against a running back with a head of steam. So you can't say enough about Travis Hunter and the way you could tell he loves the game more than anything, and I think that's so important. And it looks like he's having fun out there. I talked to multiple guys. KJ Bolden, 5-star true freshman at Georgia, probably one of the most popular. A similar guy when it comes to high school in Georgia, who everybody just loves how he carries himself. Fun-loving kid. KJ, who's the best player you ever saw in high school? Oh, Travis Hunter, hands down. I mean, it's not like just us. It's his peers. It's the people around him. It's the older people. It's the people who came before him. It would take a blind man to go look. I mean, there's no way you can look at that game and say he's not the best player in college football. I mean, the catches that he makes, it's a highlight reel every game. I mean, and I think what's even more impressive are the catches that he makes that don't count. How many times have we seen him step out of bounds or, he trapped the ball, but there are amazing catches that he should not, that he shouldn't even be remotely close to, that he finds a way to make it reviewable. So I just think that he almost leaves you speechless. Like, how can you put what he does on the football field in the words consistently? You really can't, man. It's just a joy to watch. He's not even the type guy that you want to tell your kids to emulate. Like, nah, bro, no, man, go look at somebody else. Don't look at that, bro.
You're not that good. You're not that good.
Yeah. I mean, it's like some of the things that we saw Jordan do, you had to be Kobe's level even to imitate it correctly, right? So, if you get a guy who's probably like, I mean, if you get a guy who's remotely close, watch tape on Travis Hunter. But the stuff that he's doing is so out of worldly. It's almost like watching the alien. Like, why would we try to, why would I try to emulate Cyclops or Wolverine? Bro, go watch Chuck Norris. Like, it's a difference, right? So, I think that's the level he's on. I think he's on a different level.
Yeah, and the Heisman thing's interesting because I did this for Shador specifically at the beginning of the year. I went through every Heisman winner since 2013, which I think was Jameis Winston, or around that time, around the playoff era start. And every Heisman winner, if it was a quarterback that threw for 4,000 yards, they were on a conference championship team. I think for the most part, all of them were, except for Lamar Jackson. And there was one other person. And then there was only 2 players that won the Heisman that weren't quarterbacks, and they both happened to go to Alabama. So if Travis Hunter wins the Heisman here on a Colorado team that say they win 7-8 games, and obviously he's not a quarterback, that's a generational Heisman right there. Like, that is a Heisman that will go down in the history books forever because we just don't see someone of this caliber this often. Final question before you go. Well, we'll go 2 more questions. One, how many wins do you think Travis Hunter's worth? Like, his performance alone for Colorado, is it like 2 to 3, 3 to 4? Like, is he the difference between them making a bowl game or them contending for the Big 12?
3 at least. Like, it's funny. I just did this exercise with Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn. I said, and we were talking about Auburn's quarterback situation. And I was like, all right, so I grew up on baseball, but then analytics kind of pushed me out of the game a little bit. But wins above replacement, WAR, right?
Yep.
When you look at that in the football sense, how many games do you think a player is worth? And I think that Travis Hunter himself is worth at least 3 games, which is huge. Like wars aren't that high. Wars are like 3 and 4 in baseball sometimes. Like football, that's really a quarter of your season, or a third, really, depending on how many games you play. So I mean, yeah, I think he's worth a quarter of your season. And if you think about a salary, think about a coach's salary. Let's say the coach is making $6 million. If he's worth a quarter of that, that's $1.5 million off top, bro. So yeah, I think Travis. Yeah, I think he's worth that. I think he's probably the only guy in the country that can impact the game like a quarterback from a skill position standpoint.
Okay, I like it. I like a little analytics in there too. I love that from you. Let's talk about the game itself. Who do you have winning, right? It's going to be a tough one for Colorado. It's going to be probably, I think this could be a tougher matchup for them than Nebraska in a way, because it's like you have momentum now. I think they came off that North Dakota State game kind of still figuring things out. Now you have momentum. You're going up against a UCF team who's hungry, who's looking to prove that they should be in the top 25 because they're somehow not ranked, but they are a ranked talent team in my eyes.
Yeah, I'm going Colorado money line. Yeah, man. I think it's too much juice right there. I'm about to go check the odds out right now. And then two, I also just think that the one thing about UCF is that they run the ball a lot. And I think that if Colorado could figure out a way to force the ball to Travis Hunter early and then start to go to secondary options once they make adjustments and go back and look at some of what TCU was doing to them, I think that KJ Jefferson can't get in a shootout with Shedeur Sanders. And I think that's what Colorado is probably going to try to do is say, okay, all right, yeah, y'all can run the ball, all right, but we can eventually stop the run. But see if y'all can stop this pass for 4 quarters. And I think that if you get into a game where passing versus running, I think that's Shedeur and Colorado's battery as far as receivers. I think they're going to handle their business. I think a close game, but I think Colorado comes out on top on the road.
There we go. Make it a shootout and the Buffs will win. I like it. Phillip Dukes joining us from On3. Phillip, tell the people where they can find you, what you're working on. You got a lot of great interviews going out. I know that for sure.
Man, I just did a really good show with Carday Smith, who's going to go some of his stuff from his visit unofficial. He's planning on an official visit. So I talked to Carday and with Steve Wilt phone. So that should be out tomorrow or the next day, Thursday. So it'll be out this week. But got Steve Wilt phone to talk some more Colorado with me. And that's on the On3 Recruits channel. So if you just look up the 5-star flex on On3, you'll find it. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes the Scoop.
There we go. You can find us over at Locked On Buffs. I'm also over at Kevin_Borba. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And I hope you guys all have a great Tuesday.